Good evening, good evening. How everyone doing today? God is good and God is good all the time. How y'all doing today? This weekend? It was raining earlier, but it looked beautiful out there now. We're gonna start with some news. You know, um, Legal pathway at the border. 'Cause the Title 42 about to end May the 13th. So explain the legal pathway policy for the border. The system can be changed, but lives cannot be regained. So Title 42, a public health order, due to Corona, no one could not bypass the health screen. That's what that policy was for. When the COVID had came, they always coming to the United States when they had the COVID was so bad then. It was a good thing that he came up with this policy. This policy, also, called anyone who was trying to bypass illegal. So this policy also helped for health screening. It had help for anyone that try to come through illegal, to get an opportunity to stop, to get checked for COVID, and also with paperwork and checking, if you were straight before you went across the border. So this policy maintained the flow at the border. It had a lot of people at the border, but it maintained the float at the border. It caught a whole lot of, and made sure no one came through illegal. So CBP, it's a custom border, protection. So DHS, it's Department of Homeland Security. They protect our country at the border, and manage the flow that come through. Manage the immigrants and the product. So they have other stuff that come through there too, and they have to manage. So they have to stop trucks or anything that load up coming through the border. They have to check all that. So going and coming from the United States. So without Title 42 policy that's about to end, it will be an overflow. It will have a lot of people with Title 42, but it also will be getting checked for many reasons of things that coming through the United States. But without the policy, there will be no checking for anything. You will have someone coming through illegal, coming through with sickness, because it's like I told y'all yesterday, the COVID is not over with. You know, the man says the COVID is still going strong. People are still getting sick and catching the COVID. They come in all kind of different other kind of ways. So an illegal immigrant will be crossing the border. You know, so Title 42 was in place for a health order due to COVID. But while Title 42, was in place, Osama was rejected. So while Title 42 was in place, they rejected Osama. So the immigrants, they could not apply for Osama, long as they had Title 42 in place. So our president, Mr. Bennett, he ended the Title 42 policy, that would give the immigrants to apply for the assignment. So our President Bennett, he always, finding ways to help America and the immigrants. Always trying to find ways to help them. Now he's trying to give them freedom. They restored the assignment, because as long as they had the Title 42, the assignment was rejected. So he always trying to find ways, to try to help people, to help the Americans, to help the immigrant. So the way to help the immigrants is his idea of ending Title 42, to give the immigrant freedom and give them a chance to apply for the assignment. So this where I come in at. This is where I come in at. To save the immigrant and also help them to still apply for the assignment. So I will create a new policy. The policy is 2023, to expand the legal pathway at the border and restore the asylum. You know, so uh so even though the Title 42 will be ended, you know, and given to immigrants, a chance to apply for asylum. But we still need strict rules at the border, because we don't need no illegal, person coming to the United States. So there will still be strict rules coming through the border. So legal pathway at the border. New policy 23. So this policy will enforcement legal pathway, at the border and restore asylum, goes along with this policy right here. So with this policy, you would need all that is listed to enter the border. Any assistance, that you will have to apply for. I need y'all to apply for it online. I'm trying to have the border to run smoothly and not have it so jammed up. And also, we're going to need to have a certain amount of people at the border to try to enter. And any assistance that you need, you have to apply it online. We don't need the border all held up with so many people trying to get through. Because with the Title 42 is ended, it will be out of control and overflowing. So I'm trying to keep the rules there to keep everything flowing smoothly. So the border, so any assistance you have to apply online. You know, um, have all papers and ID ready, before entering. So we won't have an overflow, so it can just run smooth. I don't want DSS to be at the border, got to have the line held up because you're trying to figure out what papers you need, this and that. So y'all have to apply for everything you need when you're going to that state. Apply for your assignment online, apply for your food stamp, welfare, anything you need to apply for it online. Because when you come to the border, you need to have papers and everything ready to come through. So you would still have to check in. You don't have to check in for the border, for the COVID, because the Title 42 was still in on the 13th. You would check in, have all papers, ID ready. I don't believe in children being separated, from their parents. I know we had that going on, but we're not going to have children separated from their parents. No uncommodated, child left alone at the border. We're not going to have that either. So all parents have your children along with you. You can't just drop them off and leave them there by themselves so they can get shipped to the United States. We're not doing that. Your child, you have to be along with your child. We're not separating no one. You're going to your child going to the United States. You have to go along with them. So legal pathway at the border is the following before entering the border. These are gonna be the following things that you're gonna need. That along with this policy here, you're gonna need your ID. You're gonna need your ID. You need to have everything in your hand when you go into that border so everything can run smoothly. You need your ID. You need your visa, your green card. If you don't have it, you have to apply for it online. If you apply for it online and you waiting on it to come back, you have to have some kind of paper stating that you registered for your green card to show them at the border. So assignment for immigrants and veterans. So if you have to apply for that, you have to apply for it online. Anything you apply online, you have to get it printed out that you register for these things here to get across the border. Because you have not registered for anything online, they will not let you through because you can't hold up the line. So for apply for any assistance that you have to apply for online, the salmon, to food stamp, to welfare, Medicaid. You apply for all that online. So time you get where you're going and everything will be set for you. 5. Before enter, you have to have all your papers. Everything that I'm naming, you have to have. If you don't have your green card, You have to have your ID. If you don't have your green card and you don't have your paper stating that you apply for, you have to get all this stuff printed out. And it have to be printed out that registered for assignment. Register for your visa, and register for your Medicaid and all this other stuff. But the main thing that you have to register to get through the border is your ID and your visa. That's the two things you have to apply for, and you have to apply for assignment before you get to the state. You know, so food stamp, Medicaid, you can do that when you get there. The main three things you need to get across the border is your ID, your visa, and assignment. Cause they want you to apply for that now before you enter the state. So before entering, you have all papers and ID ready, so everything can run smoothly. Because they're gonna have so many people at that border. It's gonna be overflowing because the Title 42 will be ending on the 13th. And that was on it. You was getting checked for the COVID, so that pretty much was a health screen. So it still will have an overflow, but it can still run smoothly if you have everything you need at the border. There still would be strict rules, even when Title 42 end, and that's why I'm coming up with this. You can still have restriction at the border. So we want to have no one illegal coming to the United States. So trying to make sure everyone are legal before crossing the border to the United States. New policy 23. Legal pathway at the border. So this what I came up with when I talked to y'all yesterday, because the Title 42 is ending, but we still need strict rules at the border. It will be out of control and overflowing without any rules. So this what I came up with. This policy will enforce legal pathway at the border. Because once it ends, it's gonna be out of control. Everyone gonna just be rushing through. Don't have to get checked with now. But this here, I need everyone to still get checked in. Everyone still get checked in. You make sure you have your ID, your visa, and you make sure everything you applying for. Don't come to the border and say you need papers to do this and do that. You have to apply for everything online to move smoothly, swiftly, at the border. So that's just on at the border, because Title 42 will be ended on the 13th. Will be ended on the 13th. Our president, Mr. Bennett, he was just on and looking out for the immigrants. Because long as you had the Title 42, the assignment was rejected. Long as they had that in place, they could not apply for the assignment. So Title 42 by the end. And the policy that I'm coming up with, the assignment is along with this policy. They can still apply for the assignment. So the assignment he was trying to give freedom to the immigrant, and he was trying to give them a chance to apply for the assignment. So that's all he was doing. But it still needed strict rules at the border. And with this policy here, I want y'all to still be able to apply for the assignment with this policy. But it still needs strict rules, because it will be out of control and overflowing with no strict rules. Okay, so we're gonna talk about the word. We're still talking about Saul and Solomon. So Israel wrote to Philistines. So then they panicked. It coming from 1 Samuel chapter 14, 15 through 23. So they panicked. They struck the whole army, and those in camp in the field, and those in the outposts, and raiding parties in the ground ship. And it was a panic that was sent by God. Now remember, while all this is going on, the Israelites was hiding. Remember last page I said they was hiding because Saul, he management some kind, he blowing the whistle and blowing the horn and all this kind of stuff, and he had the Israelite all scared and panicked. They getting defeated, so most of them ran and was hiding. So now the Philistine. Now God, you messing with the Israelite, God gonna step in. So God step in. They panic. They start striking their own people. That's how God do. God will make you enemy fighting against their own self. So they all start fighting against their own self, striking each other. In the camp, all in the field. So they was doing all that commotion, but God had the ground to shook. The ground was shook, and it was panicking. The panicking was sent by God. So we see that God has stepped in. Panic had struck the whole army, where the ground had shook, and it was sent by God. You can't mess with the Israelite, and think, and think God wasn't gonna step in. So Saul had looked out. Saul had looked out at the Gabriel and Benjamin and saw the army melting away in all directions. Now pretty much this is his son Jonathan. Jonathan snuck away with his little army and go and fight against him. So he liked the Israelite too. He helping them out. So Saul is on that high mountain. He on that mountain where he can see the Philistines. So all he's seeing people fighting and stuff. He's seeing them hitting and stuff. So Jonathan, so God doing all this, but you can't see God. But all he's seeing is the Philistines fighting against each other. Striking each other, and he looking on top of the hill like what is they doing? What is going on? Everything was just melting away in all kind of direction. So when Saul was on the hill and he was able to see the Philistines, so they were melting away like snow gradually. Then he see through the slaughter, they're slaughtering each other. Many made among themselves, one by one, and they fighting against each other. And he looking like, who are they fighting? And they could perceive, but they flee with great persecution, throwing one another, trampling each other, and they went on beating each other, so they beating each other, stomping on each other. They were just doing all kind of stuff, and some just looking like, why is they fighting among themselves like this? Why is they beating themselves down like this? So when Saul had said to the men, who was with them? So Saul trying to figure out, they're fighting among themselves, but who is with them? Who mustered the force of seeing who is left? So when they did, they he trying to see if his man was left. If their man was still there. So the people said, well, Jonathan, and his army barons, they is not here. So Jonathan went to battle without even let Saul know. So now Saul is on the hill, and he see, fighting, but and he trying to figure out who is in charge, who is missing, so Saul and his army, they was missing. That's who he snuck off to get this battle going, without telling Saul. So Jonathan had went on battle without telling Saul. So Jonathan and his army barons had right behind him. The Philistines fight before Jonathan and his army barons, his crew, followed and killed them. Attacked them. He killed like 20 men of them. So Jonathan saw they fighting among themselves, hitting each other. That was the opportunity to go and just kill by 20 of them. They can't see God, but God was putting the power on them, making them fighting among himself, and he's standing up on the hill, and Jonathan, he's seeing them fighting against himself, so they just came and started killing them, so Saul said to Abijah, bring the ark of God, at that time it was with the Israelites. Remember the last time the Philistines took the ark, bringing it to everyone and stuff, and everyone was still getting sick and dying, so they gave back to the Israelites. But it was deep position at Kurjan, so it was stationary there, so while Saul was talking to the priest, and more, while he was talking to the priest, the torment in the Philistine camp increased, more and more, so they will increase more and more, because Jonathan, he killed some of it, so Saul had said to the priest, withdraw your hand. Now he must think he beating up the Philistine. He said, withdraw your hand. Withdraw your hand. Refer, to the use of an Aram and a turban, and they would withdraw from the linen apron as a way of determining God will. So the priest, wear the apron, determine God will. When you pray to God, pray to God for something, because Saul is kind of confused right now. So then Saul had in all his men, assembly and went to the battle. So they fought the Philistines in total confusion, striking each other with their sword. So he going to fight a battle. They're already in the battle. They're in the battle with themselves. So Saul is rushing God answers. Remember he went to the priest with the apron. When we say withdraw your hand, that means they're praying to God for answers. Saul don't have patience. Remember last time he was supposed to be waiting on Samuel. He said Samuel took too long and he took action in his own hands. Now he about to do it again. So then Saul and all his men assembly and went to battle. They found the Philistines in total confusion. Striking each other. With their sword. So Saul is rushing God answer. So he could hurry and get into battle to take advantage of this confusion, of the Philistines. This is a powerful nation right here. But to see them in confusion like this here, Saul, and Jonathan took advantage of this here. He trying to hurry God answer, so he can hurry up and attack them while they in a confusion right there. It's kind of strange to see a powerful nation like this here in confusion, and they're just fighting among each other. So those Hebrews had previously been with the Philistines and had gone up and went there, to their camp and went over the Israelites who were with Saul and Jonathan. So Jonathan finally came and joined in with his father. So Jonathan, who was now joined in, and when they saw the dread confusion, they saw the confusion in the camp of the Philistines, they destroyed one another, the Israelites prevailing over the victorious and pursuing that, they took part with them and assist them completely victory. That was God doing. That was God doing. God had them in confusion. God had them striking each other, beating each other. And Saul said he saw them stumbling all over each other. So he really, he had to go into battle. He seeing them just stomping all over each other, beating each other. He like, well, what is going on? So they got victory over the Philistines. So when all the Israelites who had hidden, remember early on they was hiding because the first battle, Saul didn't know what he was doing, and he had the Israelites all confused themselves. It had them all terrified. So they was hiding. So, but when all the Israelites who had hid, in the hill country of Israel, they heard about the Philistines, were on the run. So they joined the battle in hot pursuit. So they joined the battle too, just to see the Philistines, in confusion. And then on the run, so the Israelite was hidden in cage. So now they heard that the Philistines, had flee and they on the run. So now being delivered from their fear, they ran from fear and thinking themselves to be safe. That they came out from their hiding place. They're ready to go to war now. They ain't in no fear right now. Just to see the Philistines fighting each other in confusion and running. Running from them. That was their opportunity. Oh, I ain't got no fear no more. Let's get out of our hiding spot. Let's get into this battle. So on that day, the Lord has saved the Israel. In a battle, move on beyond that ever. So the Lord has saved the Israelites that day, and their deliverance, was eventually affected by him, in that by means they were extraordinary, and such as could have produced so such, affected without his almighty power working therefore. And they had to recognize, it was God's power that had them confused. It was God's power that had them fighting among each other. We have to recognize when God is in the mix, and He was in the mix. Because they came against. Saul did the battle the first time. Had the Israelite all frightened and terrified. They all scattered and running everywhere, hiding and stuff. So God had to step in. And so when Saul standing up there on the mountain, he's seeing them. He said, "Well, what's wrong? I'm seeing they fighting each other. Well, who is in charge of all this? Where is all this fighting coming from? So the Lord saved the Israelites that day. Their deliverance was eventually affected by Him, in that by means very extraordinary, and such as could have produced no such effect without His mighty power working thereby. So that's the warranty, that were engaged in a battle and were pursuing the Philistines. God was at work. God was at work. They had to try to figure that out. But them, when the Philistines in confusion fighting much, they ain't had the time to figure that out. They automatically should have known that was God. That was God's power. That was God in working. So God was at work. He had the Philistines fighting among themselves. And see, that's how God do. That's why God always keeps saying, why don't you keep worrying? Stop worrying. This one's doing this, doing that. God have your enemy fighting among themselves. God will have your enemy fussing and being in confused. So that's what He had. They're supposed to be coming against the Israelites. And, they came against themselves. Fighting among themselves, stumping all on, crossing all over themselves. Saw them just doing all kind of stuff. What they never saw the Philistines done before. So among themselves, He had them in confusion. The Israelite was in fear. And there was hiding. But they heard the Philistine running. They go to show you how news gets around by them in a cage. They still heard, that the Philistine was running in confused, and they jumped out of that. Remember, they was in fear. So they jumped out of that fear so quick, and they jumped right into battle. So they got out of that fear quick, and they jumped right into battle. So that's the story on this. We still talking about Saul. Saul, he getting besides himself. He messed up the first time, and then this second time, God stepped in and He had them in confusion, fighting among themselves, because they the one came against the Israelite early on, and that's what had them scattered all over and running and hiding in cages and stuff. Because Saul did what he was supposed to protect the Israelite, and he pursued it all the wrong way. So we talk about this the legal pathway at the border, because Title 42 is supposed to be ending it will be ending on the 13th. And it will have an overflow. So meaning it still need rules, restrict rules at the border to keep it at a flow for DHS can still manage the flow. So we won't have illegal. No one would be illegal coming across the United States. And also it was being shut down because as long as they had the Title 42, the assignment was rejected, and the immigrants could not apply for it. But with this policy I came up with, assignment is attached to this policy, so they'll be able to still apply for assignment and still have strict rules at the border. So we just talk about Saul. We talk about Jonathan went to war the first time, without even telling on Saul, and he killed 20 some people on Philistine. So then Saul on top of the mountain, he on top of the mountain, he could see the Philistine, he seen them fighting among themselves. He said they beating each other, hitting with swords and stomping all over each other. So he had to hurry up and come down, because when everybody see this powerful nature fighting among themselves, being confused, everybody jump on and go into battle. He hurried up and came down that mountain. He said, well, who forced this here? So they try to figure it out, but it was God. It was God at power, It was God had Israelite enemy fighting among each other, had them in confusion. So a lot of times, that's why God always said the battle is his. That's why he always said the battle belongs to the Lord. And we get all worked up, all bent up out of shape, worrying and stressed out, but the battle belongs to God. That's why he says, stop stressing on. Stop worrying about this, stop worrying about that. Because the battle belongs to God. But Saul did the battle wrong yesterday, but God stepped in and corrected. And he got the Philistines from coming against the Israelites, got them running all in caves and hiding and everything. So God's jumped in his battle, and he had them fighting among themselves and had them in confusion. So that's all the story I have for you and news I have for you today. We just have to remember that our battle, our storm belongs to God. He take control, when he feel like we cannot handle it. He will always step in. He will always step in. And sometimes you don't even have to do anything. Israel didn't have to do anything. Because God had them fighting among themselves. Had them in confusion. And also we talked about the Title 42 will be ending on the 13th, and it still needs some strict rules at the border because it will have a ready overflow. And so much illegal, stuff will be coming through to the United States. And then also with the Title 42 was in place, the assignment, could not, it was rejected, the assignment. So our president, our president, he was trying to look out for them. And the policy was his way of giving them freedom and giving them a chance to apply for the assignment. But with this I created, they can still apply for the assignment and still have strict rules at the border. So that's all I have for you today. Y'all have a blessed day, and I'll see y'all on the next video.